Hello everyone and welcome back to a video covering the rules of D&D. And today we're going to be talking about combat. My name is Nick. I am the club coordinator for the D&D club at the Digital Arts Experience. And we're going to continue exploring rules, try to clarify and demystify how the game actually works. There's a lot of rules, but once you get them under your belt, you can have a lot of fun. And even if you don't understand all the rules, that's okay. You can still have a lot of fun. But for those of you who are wondering how combat works, I should actually clear this out from my previous example. For those of you who are wondering how combat works, this is an excellent tutorial to get started. So normally when you play a D&D game, players will just chime in and tell the dungeon master when they want to do something. And normally this is not a problem. As the story is unfolding, a player may have an idea of what they want to do, or a thought occurs to them, or they want to discuss with players, and you can readily do so at any time. However, combat is very important because depending on the order of combat or who goes first, it may drastically change the outcome of a battle. So while most other parts of D&D are very conversationally based, it doesn't really matter who has an idea when, timing is very important. So combat is turn-based. So everyone will take a turn, and then at the end of the last person's turn, that will reset the round. So if you have a party of 5 people and you're facing off against, say, two evil ninjas, for example, you have 7 turns in that combat round, and then the round will reset after the last person. Just for a quick note, each round of combat is approximately 6 seconds, so for those of you who have to track abilities and when they give out, that's going to equate to about 10 rounds of combat. Go see the spells and, what was it? Go see the spells tutorial when we're talking about spell components that's going to come into play. Now, how do we determine who goes first in combat? Well, let's actually go ahead and do an example with Grumgrum. Let's say Grumgrum is, walking down that trail, and he's, spreading the good word of his god Grumsh, who I don't know how good that particular god is, but regardless, he's spreading the word. As he's going by a particularly dark and foreboding forest, there is a sudden growl, and a werewolf jumps out behind a thicket of trees. So Grumgrum sees the opponent, and combat is initiated. Initiated. I must enunciate. So from this point, the Dungeon Master will typically ask people to roll initiative, and this is what's going to determine the combat order. Players or non-players or non-player characters, or NPCs for short, will go according to their initiative order, with the higher initiative results going first, all the way down to the lowest initiative score. So in this case, Grumgrum and the werewolf are both going to roll initiative to see who goes first. So in this case, unfortunately, Grumgrum does not have a particularly high initiative. Just for reference, initiative is based off of dexterity. This is not a skill check. So you do not add your proficiency bonus. This is just purely off of your ability to react, which in this case is your dexterity. So unfortunately, Grumgrum does not get to go first. So we're just going to roll here, see what he gets. Don't let me down, Grumgrum. Grumgrum! Oh boy. All right, so Grumgrum gets a whopping 4, which is not great. Let's go ahead and roll for the werewolf. I will say the werewolf gets a +2 because they are usually pretty quick. Roll a 1, roll a 1, roll a 1, roll a 1. That's not a 1, that's not a 1. Oh, okay. So, unfortunately, the werewolf rolled a 19, 17 +2. So, now we have all the initiative numbers, and we now have a combat order. So the werewolf is going to go first, followed by Grumgrum. So once you have the initiative order figured out, now it begins with the first player, or in this case, the NPC or non-player character. So the werewolf is going to go first, and on each of your turns, you have 3 things that you can do. You have an action, a bonus action, and movement. So every time it comes to your turn, you can do you can do all 3 of those things in any order. So you could, for example, do an action, a bonus action, then movement. You could do movement first, then bonus and action. They're interchangeable. Now, the big thing is, how do you use these? So going through with our example here, the werewolf wants to scratch Grumgrum because it's a werewolf. That's what they do. So it's going to use its movement speed, which in this case, you can see Grumgrum has 30. I believe a werewolf is a little bit faster. But for the sake of this example, it's going to use all of its movement speed to get next to Grum Grum. So it used all of its movement. It now has a action and a bonus action remaining if it has it. So I don't believe the werewolf has a bonus action, so it does not get that ability. Generally, bonus actions are very specific, and they are listed in either your abilities or your spells, so you will have to go through everything a little bit carefully. Don't worry, we're going to cover this in more detail. However, it has an action. Now, one of the most common actions you can take in combat is the attack action, which is exactly what it's going to do. So in this case, the werewolf is going to attack Grum Grum. It is going to get another +2. So we're going to go ahead and roll. Its attack bonus is, we'll say for this, just a +2 to keep it simple. Okay, so the werewolf rolled a 10 +2, which is a total of 12. And that is compared against the armor class, which in this case is below Grum Grum's armor class. So that is very good for Grum Grum. So the attack misses, the werewolf used all of its movement, and then it does not have a bonus action. So once the werewolf is done with its turn, which in this case is being controlled by the DM, now we're going to go to the next player, which in this case is Grum Grum. Grum Grum knows that werewolves are particularly dangerous, so he's not going to utilize any of his movement speed because the werewolf is literally right next to him in this scenario. He could try to move away from it, but he actually wants to try attacking it. So because he knows that werewolves are a little bit dangerous, he's going to go to his spells, and he recalls that his Shield of Faith spell is actually a bonus action. So he can cast a spell first before he does his primary action, which he's reserving for a mace hit. So he's going to use his bonus action to cast the spell. The range is not... It's on himself, so he doesn't really have to target anything. He's not hindered by... verbal, though he is wielding a shield right now, so he is going to, he can holster his mace for a second, and he can use his hand, so he's okay in that instance. There is a material component, but he has a spellcasting focus. If none of this makes sense, by the way, you can go over to the spells tutorials. It's going to cover this in more detail. It is concentration, so we're going to have to pay attention to that, but that's okay. So in any event, I cast Shield of Faith using my bonus action. I will use the spell slot for that, which it gets marked up here as well as over here. So now I have an additional bonus to my armor class, which is +2. So now this is actually an 18. So I'm going to go ahead and close that. So I used my bonus action. I'm not going to use my movement because I don't want to move away. Typically, for reference, the Dungeon Master will sometimes have a grid with minis out on the board for reference. For most of our clubs, we use Theater of the Mind, so the Dungeon Master will keep rough ideas of where everything are on the board. As long as you tell them how far you want to move or where you want to go, the Dungeon Master will work with you to use your walking speed appropriately. So in this case, Grum Grum's not going to use any of this up. He used his bonus action. He is then going to try and attack the werewolf. So he is going to make... We're going to go back over to our actions over here. I almost went to the die, but you do have attack bonuses with your weapons, which we will cover in another video. That's going to come up soon. But in this case, he's going to try and attacking with the mace, which is a +5. So we're going to try and hit it. Here we go. I believe the armor... Oh, that's not good. So unfortunately, he rolled a total of 7, 2 + 5, which does not equal the werewolf's armor class. I think they have a 14 or 16 armor class, so that was nowhere near it. So unfortunately, Grum Grum misses. And then once it is the end of Grum Grum's turn, he was the last person in combat, so now the round resets and the werewolf gets to go. And that's essentially how combat works. You establish the initiative order. The top player with the highest initiative goes first, works your way down the line with each player, whether they're an NPC or an actual character, using their action, bonus action, and movement if they are able to do so. And then it continues until it gets to the last person, and then the round resets and continues until there is a victorious party. Now, obviously, there's a lot more details to go into, particularly with like, hey, what constitutes an action? What is a bonus action? How does my walking speed come into this? We're going to cover that in a couple more videos. So it will hopefully demystify this, but at the very basic level, you have an understanding of the turn-based order in combat. So I'm going to stop the video here. and we will pick up specifics for action, movement, and bonus action in the next videos. And we will also talk a little bit, we will also talk a little bit about character abilities. So again, my name is Nick. If you have any questions about the D&D Club or any of the videos that we've done, please go ahead and comment. Consider checking out our club website, which is dnd.thedae.com. We've got a bunch of really cool stuff up there, and consider maybe joining a game. It's a lot of fun, and I promise you will enjoy yourself. All right, thank you very much. I'll catch you later.